Hi everyone, it's Karen with Love Your Land, and today I'm making applesauce and I'm going to can it, so I thought I'd bring you along for the ride. The first thing that you want to do when you're canning, water bath canning that is get your water bath canner filled with water and start heating it up because it does take quite a while. Also, if you're going to run your jars through the dishwasher, go ahead and get those running through the dishwasher because that takes a while too. So there's a couple of ways to do this, but the first thing with your apples that you need to do is peel, core, and slice them. There is the traditional, well, I wouldn't even call it traditional. I think these units have been around for quite a while. But there's this route, right? So with this, you would peel the apple, and then you would slice it and core it with this unit. That works fine. If that's all you have, go for it. If you have one of these units, you already know they are a huge time saver. So, and even mine, I don't know how this happened, but somehow over the course of the past year, sitting in the basement, mine kind of broke. It still works well enough, but it won't suction cup to the counter anymore, and the peeler slicer part isn't working all that great, but it's not going to stop me from using it. I know from experience that this is still far faster than the doing it by hand method. Plus I have like, I don't even know how many apples, a lot. So what you want to do is take your apple and you impale it onto this part right down the center of the core. So you put it on there and start cranking. Again, normally this suction cups to the counter, so don't judge this unit. I really needed to replace it, but I didn't have time to go to the store and get a new one. So you just start cranking it, and it peels and slices and cores all at the same time. Super fast, super easy. So now what we're left with is a fruit fly. Get out of here. You're left with these perfect little apple slices. Now, actually, these aren't perfect because these apples have been sitting on my kitchen counter for, you don't even want to know how long. A long time. Some of them I got on September 9th. Yeah, and it's October 27th today. Some I just got a few weeks ago, but anyway, they've been sitting there for quite a while. And then as you slice them and core them and all that, you want to put them into a bowl with lemon juice and water. And the ratio in this batch is about a cup of lemon juice, and then I filled the bowl up. Actually, I probably only filled up to there, but now it's about halfway full. And I'll probably need to add a little more water as I go through. So if you have little parts, little bad parts, just cut them off. You don't have to waste the whole apple. It's still perfectly good. And by the way, even though these apples are as old as I said they were, especially the ones that I've had since September 9th, I refuse to waste them. I cut them open and they're just absolutely delicious on the inside. They're still sweet as can be. So, you know, you may not want to just eat one whole because there's bug damage on it or a bruise or something, but you have so much apple left, even with a damaged apple, that making applesauce is just the perfect thing. So I'm going to get through slicing, peeling, coring all of the apples. And when I'm done, I'll bring you back and I'll show you how to make applesauce and then how to can it, okay? I'll be right back. Okay, step 2. Once you've sliced up all your apples, you're going to want to put them in a large pot and add just enough water to keep them from sticking. The ball canning guide for this recipe, this is the recipe I'm using, is from their book, says it takes between 5 and 20 minutes for them to break down and cook. In my experience, it takes a little longer than that, but I'm going to be nearby, and I'm not going to wander off in the other room and go watch TV. I'm going to stay right here because I don't want them to scorch or stick or any of that stuff. In fact, while they're cooking, I'm going to wash my jars and lids and seals. So once these are done cooking, I'll bring you back and we'll move on to the next step, and then we'll be very close to actually canning them. The apples have cooked down. As you can see, they're in a whole different pot. And I didn't really even need to shoot this part of the video, but I wanted to clarify something that I learned. And that is, if you remember in the beginning of this video when I was having trouble with my core peeler slicer gadget, it wasn't peeling the apples completely. So long story short, I was having trouble getting a definitive answer on whether or not it was safe to can the applesauce with the peels on. Or not, you know, there weren't complete whole apple peels, but there was definitely bits and parts of apple peel in that pot. So again, long story short, what I finally learned from a canner expert friend of mine is that it is perfectly fine to have bits of peels is what she said, in your applesauce. It's really just a texture issue. So if you don't want that added texture, then go ahead and either strain them through using a metal strainer, and a metal ladle. You ladle some in there, take the back of your ladle, go like that into a pan, and it'll be very smooth, and you won't have that extra texture. If you have a food mill, that's another great option. It takes very little time. There's just cleanup involved. But anyway, what I did, because I don't mind the extra texture, I actually want that. And since these apples are organic, I'm not worried about any pesticides or anything, or waxes like from the store. I'm not worried about anything. I don't need to worry about anything like that because they're not on there. It's just not present. These are all apples from basically my neighborhood, or my community, I should say. So I just threw them in my food processor, and it took 5 seconds. I put them back in here. Obviously, this is a new day. I'm wearing different clothes again. This is what happens when I get confused. I put everything in the fridge, go to sleep. So it was cold when I took it out of the fridge, obviously, but it was perfect for the food processor because I didn't have any danger of being splattered with hot liquid. But I did have to warm it back up. So that's what's happening in there. In this pot, we have just under 3 minutes left on, my jars are in here sterilizing. So as soon as we're done, as soon as this timer goes off, I'm going to get everything ready here off camera, and we'll be actually adding the applesauce into the jars and getting them into the canner, okay? Ah, darn it. I almost made it to the end of this video without saying that word. So here's another little quickie thing. Yesterday, a viewer on Facebook commented that I say okay a lot. And I was like, no, I don't. Do I? So she had watched the chard video, so of course, I had to watch it last night. So I watched it, and like the longest time, I never say the word once. So I'm like, this lady's just giving me a hard time. And then lo and behold, about halfway through the video, when I'm doing like the demo part, I start saying it all the time. I say it way too much. So I'm going to be working on that. Trying to figure out a different word, trying to just stop myself from the need to say that. But feel free to call me out on it because I really want to break this habit. It's unnecessary. Like right now, it's right there. Right there, I'm about to say it to wrap this up. So I won't. I will just simply say, I'll be right back. Have you ever had one of those days? Well, I'm having 2 in a row, and I just shot the final clip of this video to show you filling the jars and getting the seals and the rings on and getting them into the canner, and I didn't have my microphone plugged in. So let's try this one more time. If you need to see this visually, you can go to my canning spaghetti sauce video, I think it's called, and you see every single solitary detail in that video. But for now, in this video, because I already have all those jars filled and they're already in the canner, I can't recreate that. So I'm just going to tell you what I did. So when it's time to fill your jars, you make sure everything's hot. The jars are hot, the rings and seals are hot, the food is hot, and you keep your water boiling. Then line up your jars on your counter. Take some sort of funnel if you don't want to make a mess on the jar, that is. You're going to make a mess on your counter. You put the funnel inside the jar, scoop your food out. I used a measuring cup. You can use a ladle or whatever you want. Pour it into your jar. Applesauce, you leave about a 1/2 inch headroom at the top. So once they're full, you take your bubble remover and just go around the sides and remove any bubbles. Let the air bubbles come up. You'll see them come up. And then when you're done, sometimes you need to add maybe a little teaspoon more of whatever you're canning to make it be the 1/2 inch or 1/4 inch or whatever it says in your book. So go ahead and do that. Then you take your bubble, no, you don't. Then you take a little paper towel or a clean rag. This is going in the fridge, so don't worry that this is totally not clean. But you just go around the edges of the jar, make sure there's no food on there, and around the top rim, and make sure that is free of food. You don't want to be sealing food on top of this rim. Then you take your bubble remover, but you use the magnetic end. You take your seals, center them on top of the jar, then take your rings and, without burning yourself, because this is really hot, screw them on just to finger tight, okay? Just to where you meet resistance and then stop. Then you come over to your canning pot. There's a rack inside here because you don't want your jars to ever be sitting directly on the bottom of the pot. So canning rack is essential. And again, all of this, you can see this all visually in the spaghetti sauce video. So this isn't a ploy to get you to watch that. I sincerely blew it. So this is the best I can do. Anyway, when you set your rack out so that the edges of it hook onto the sides, you're going to have to hold on to one edge. So it does get a little bit tricky in that regard. Then you take your jar lifter and securely, slowly, carefully lift your jars, holding your rack, and start placing them in the rack. There's 7 positions in the rack. There's 7 spots, I should say. And so you just take your jars and set them in there. I will tell you that with pint-sized jars, they're a little more wobbly than quart-sized jars. Quart-sized jars sort of hold themselves up against one another. Pints like to float around a little bit. Just don't panic. I've been so nervous. When I first started canning, I'd get so nervous when I was putting them in there because it's like, what if they fall over? You just set them back up. It's okay. Once you get them all in there, put the lid back on. Oh, you lower the rack, excuse me. Lower the rack down into the water, poke the little, whatever those things are called, hooks into the water, put your lid on. Then stand by and wait for it to boil. Once it starts boiling, I've been waiting for a long time for you to boil. Boil already. Once it starts boiling, that's when you set your time. That's when you start your processing time. Applesauce is a 20-minute process. It's not a 20-minute process. It takes 20 minutes to process. But you also have to adjust for your altitude. So towards the back of the ball canning book, there's a chart. You look up your altitude and then look up the corresponding number of minutes you need to increase your processing time. For me, it's an extra 10 minutes. So once this starts boiling, I'll set the timer for 30 minutes. And when the timer goes off, the last step is you take your lid off, you turn your burner off, you set the timer for 5 more minutes where the water is actually cooling down, and that just helps your jars get a better seal. So I'm going to stand by. You can go take a break, and I will set the timer for 30 minutes once this is boiling. I didn't say okay. I just did, but that's all right. I've had a heck of a day, 2 days. This has been a labor of love, let me tell you. Anyway, we're almost done. Processing time is done. The extra 5 minutes to let them settle down a little bit is done. And now I'm going to take my jar grabber again and lift them out carefully and set them on a surface with a towel, thick towel, about 2 inches apart. You definitely don't want them touching. You want them to just be able to have their space, their breathing room. have a pacing dog here. So once you get them out of here, they may have already sealed. I may have missed the popping sound. Sometimes they'll seal. No, I just did it. Sometimes they'll do it during that cooling down process. Sometimes they actually do it when I'm putting them in. Like I said in the spaghetti video, if that happens, ignore it. You still have to process them for the full time. And number 7, lucky number 7, just got a seal on it. So I'm not going to forget this very important thing in this video, like I did in the spaghetti sauce video. Once these have a chance to sit here undisturbed for 24 hours, don't poke them, don't let your family pick them up, move them, nothing. Once they sit here for about 24 hours, or at least overnight, then you need to remove the rings. I think there's some conflicting information out there about it, but if you want a good explanation of it, again, check out my spaghetti sauce video, because at the very end of it, you could just watch the very end of it. I explain why you take the rings off. And it might seem not logical to you to take the rings off, but trust me, it's for your own safety. So that is how you make applesauce. I hope you guys try it. And if you don't have an apple tree, I'm telling you, there are people out there. Go on Facebook. If you have a free cycle organization in your area, post a wanted in there for apples, because people with apple trees generally have more apples than they can deal with. So all of my apples have been free organic apples from people in my community. So you don't necessarily have to go and buy them. Anyway, that's it. I hope you enjoyed it. Sorry for the mishaps here and there, but that's life, right? I'll talk to you guys soon. Have a great day. Bye.